A growing number of reasonable Democratic leaders in our state are starting to come to terms with the fact that their party has truly failed when it comes to dealing with the homelessness crisis and the drug crisis. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. So you guys might recall we had on the deputy mayor for the city of Kenmore, who is a lifelong Democrat, had been a lifelong Democrat. And she, because residents were pushing back, ended up voting to reject what would have been a housing project for people who were homeless, who were drug addicted, because the city was sold a bill of goods that just wasn't true. Initially thought this was going to be low-income housing for, families, low-income families. And then they thought it was going to be for veterans and the elderly. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, this is for homeless people and people who are actively abusing substances. And so the city of Kenmore is like, look, we want to be helpful. We want to be a partner in the homelessness crisis. But we're not going to have you shove this thing down our throat. And we're certainly not going to have you make us feel bad for it. Because after the city of Kenmore tanked this project, remember Governor Inslee came out and called the leaders feckless? He said they were feckless for doing it. So Deputy Mayor Melanie O'Kane, lifelong Democrat, was not pleased with being attacked by the governor and other Democratic leaders in that way. And she came on this show and told everyone that she was now going to be an independent.
I'm an FDR old school Democrat who is an independent today based on how our party is working. And that's what the Democratic Party needs to hear. You're losing people like me.
One of the things she talked about is just, look, we need to do things that work. We want to help the homeless. We want to be empathetic, of course. We want to help people turn their lives around. But we have to do things that work. And we have to make sure that citizens' voices are being heard. And that if you're going to have a project that has serious public safety implications, that we get a good heads up to our citizens and that we hear their feedback. And that's not asking too much. And I agree with her wholeheartedly. And it was just such a tremendous interview. So then fast forward to yesterday, the episode of Sundays with Subscribers we just aired with Burien Mayor Kevin Schilling. So on the show last week, we talked about how the city of Burien is currently in a fight, literally a legal battle with King County, because Burien passed an ordinance that basically said, look, you can't camp on our sidewalks and in our public places if we have a shelter for you to go to. And the sheriff of King County, who's now a political appointee, so this is obviously a decision that came from King County Executive Dow Constantine, they said behind the scenes, we're not going to enforce that ordinance. So they were basically like, we're just going to ignore all these tents, despite the ordinance that the city of Burien has put through, and despite the fact that they contract with us for us to provide law enforcement services to their city. So Burien Mayor Kevin Schilling is just livid over the whole thing. And now the sheriff's office has turned around and sued the city of Burien to determine whether their ordinance on camping is even constitutional. But Burien Mayor Kevin Schilling joined us on Sundays with Subscribers and just said, look, I don't care if it's left or right. I don't care what party I have been with traditionally. What we're doing is not working. And I am going to be someone who stands up and says so.
I'm against do-nothing government.
Yeah.
I do not think it is the job of elected officials to support and continue policies that are shown to do nothing. Mm-hmm. We relentlessly ask people to increase taxes, to spend on policies and programs that do not show positive outcomes. Really, we need to be prioritizing public safety over politics and treatment over tents. And it's time to stand up to the failed policies and say, hey, I'm someone that wants to take action here and make the government work for good.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in perpetuating policies that continuously spend money, see no results, and end up with someone losing their life.
You're weirding me out a little bit because I thought, aren't you a Democrat?
I'm a full-on Democrat.
Okay.
I'm a third-generation Democrat. I am a Joe Biden, Barack Obama, hardcore Democrat. I have never voted for a Republican in my life. And my three generations of Schilling men in King County have all been Democrats. And in my re-election, where I won 60% of the vote, 70% of my voters are registered Democrats. This is a mainstream liberal position to hold, except I would argue this issue of getting people off the streets into shelter and services is the defining nonpartisan issue of our lifetime. It transcends liberal conservative. It transcends Democratic and Republican because it is fully about getting people into more positive situations.
But don't you agree that the Democrats have done this? Who else can we blame for it?
I mean, Democrats are in charge of the state of Washington and King County for sure. But I've been saying this ever since I've been an elected official in my own party.
Not a lot of other Democrats have said it with the gusto and the emphasis, though.
Well,
they cower from it.
They're afraid of losing of party support because, listen, I mean, I lost party support my last election because I'm saying this. I did not get endorsed by my party last election cycle last year. I was openly not just openly not endorsed. I was openly criticized by them. There were editorials in The Stranger calling me out.
When The Stranger criticizes you, you do know that's a compliment, right?
I'm not worried about it, but I do. It is interesting. People, you can't be more concerned about your political future than you are concerned about citizens you are supposed to be making decisions for.
Amen. Burien Mayor Kevin Schilling. He's now rose to on my list of favorite mayors. And I think we've seen that from a lot of South King County mayors. They're tired of being under the thumb of Seattle politics, of the King County executive who's been in office for 4 terms. And they're tired of, this one-size-fits-all approach that what Seattle politicians or what works in Seattle and downtown is going to work for them. And it's just not going to, and they're not going to put up with it. And they have the right and the ability to make individual ordinances that work for their city. We need more people like Melanie O'Kane in the city of Kenmore. We need more people like Kevin Schilling in the city of Burien to just come out, party be damned, consequences be damned, and say what's obvious. This isn't working. This isn't working. It hasn't been working for 10 years. We put billions of dollars into this. We have more homeless people than we've ever had before. We have more people dying of drug overdoses than we've ever had before. And we have to move on to a different solution. There's nothing controversial about that. And there shouldn't be anything partisan about that. Why would a party want to continue to cling to policies that have failed, clearly, that have left more people living on the streets, that have left more people overdosing on drugs? Is it because you just don't want to admit that you were wrong? So I think we're seeing a trend here on the unDivided podcast that Democrats who are frustrated with their party's failed policies come here to say so. And I low-key love it.